All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Braylon Beaver. I'm the behavior specialist that works at Easter Seals in our Bucks division. And with me is Megan.
Hi guys, I'm Megan Guthrie. I'm the Education Department Lead at our Easter Seals division in Philadelphia with the EI Center.
And we're going to talk briefly about variable ratio scheduled reinforcement. So I hope everybody learned something new, and let's get started. Okay, we are in the process of creating an introduction to verbal behavior, and it would very much help you if you have, if you watch that before you watch this video. It just kind of gives you a good all-around understanding of what VB is. All right, so variable ratio is a schedule of reinforcement where the reinforcement is delivered based on an average. So variable equals average. And honestly, this is probably the last time I'm going to say variable ratio. I'm going to call it VR. Very, very rarely does anybody ever spell it out fully. So I have an example of what a VR is. So it's the average of tasks to the times that you reinforce, to one instance of reinforcement. So in this example, you have one trial, and there's 5 tasks, and then you have 1 reinforcement. Trial number 2, you did 3 tasks, 1 reinforcement, and then trial number 3, you did 7 tasks and 1 reinforcement. So the average is 5, but it's not that every time you gave 5 tasks. So VR schedules have been proven to give consistent, steady rates of responses. And the reason is the student doesn't know exactly when he will be reinforced. So, for example, if you did a flat rate and you said, hey, I'm going to reinforce this guy after every 3 tasks. The issue that you find is once they're reinforced, they're really not going to put a lot of effort into this one, the first trial, because they have 2 more to go. You know, and this one they might be like, ugh, a little bit more. And this third one, I put a lot of effort in because I know that reinforcement is coming, right? And then you start that cycle all over again. This way, you never really know which response gets me what I want. So I have to put effort into all of them. And then the other thing that this does is multiple therapists and teachers can work with the same student. And if they're all following the same VR, you should have a relative ease, right? It shouldn't be that hard. There shouldn't be too much of a difference when Megan works with a student compared to when I work with a student, because we both reinforce at the same rate, okay? Megan, do you have anything to add?
No, I think this is good to use in classrooms if you can all figure out the same average. I think it decreases student challenging behavior.
Yeah, and that's really what it's supposed to do. I've been in classrooms, actually our classrooms, where they have a little sheet on the wall that says the rate of reinforcement for each student, because you're going to have a difference. You're going to have your student who's been there for 2 years and he knows the name of the game, and you're like, man, I reinforce him. Like, maybe you do that 5-to-1 schedule because he can handle it. And then you have that new kid that just came in and you're like, oh no, I reinforce him 1-to-1. He needs it. So I found it very helpful because you could just quick look up and be like, oh, I'm shooting for 3. Okay. And start working. Anyway, so where do you start? So again, that little kid who just came into your classroom and you're just introducing VB, you really want to start with a 1-to-1. And that does not mean that every task gets reinforced. It means there's an average. So I have here that the first trial, you do 2 tasks and you reinforce. The second trial, you do 1 task and you reinforce. And the third trial, you don't give him any task. You just like say if it's an iPad, you take it away and you say, do you want more iPad time? And you give it right back. Okay, and that's 0 tasks, 1 instance of reinforcement. It's also very clear when you are using food because, if you use 1 goldfish as a reinforcement and then that next time you give him 2, you give him another goldfish. It's just a little bit of a longer break. We don't want to get in the habit of every response equals a reinforcement. It's very hard to break that. Anyway, okay. So how do I figure out what my VR is? The best way to do this is to have another person record how often you are reinforcing and how many tasks you are presenting in between. We're going to do a demonstration of this. We have a video presented by Danielle that we are going to measure her VR. The other way you can do this is you can record yourself. You can have a little pad or clipboard next to you and just tally how many tasks you've done and then, cross them out when you do a reward. I will say it's harder and it stints your intensive teaching session. It's just a little bit hard on your flow to do that. And then, those are kind of the 2 ways that you can do it. I have been on cases, not with Easter seals, where it was a requirement that once a month I had to record our one-to-ones VR to make sure that they were consistent. That was a very hard and challenging case, and I admit, that was an extra step. That was definitely extra. But it is a good idea, especially if you're seeing challenging behaviors. It's a good idea to be like, well, okay, what is my VR? Is it too high? You do not have to do this every day. This is not a requirement. I would do it frequently if you're new to VR or if you have a new student, but eventually you will get a feel for it. You will kind of naturally be like, know when to reinforce and when not to. I would do it every once in a while just to check yourself and make sure you're on track. Anyway, Megan, do you have anything to add, comment?
No, it's good.
All right. So when do you increase? So obviously we have this little guy. He started with 1-to-1. You want to increase though. You want his ability to accept more and more tasks to get greater and greater. That's the whole goal. And there's really no scientific formula that tells you when you should. But if you're having a good day and you have a history, like the last week, he's had limited challenging behaviors, I would experiment. I would add 1 or 2 tasks into your sequence, see what happens. If you start to see, oh man, his attention really lagged that last one, okay, I got to pull back. We're still on this ratio. As you notice your student's attention span is increasing, that's a good sign that he can handle more tasks. And then the other thing is if you have a very motivating reinforcer, it will help increase your VR. So I have had that moment where you were holding the thing that was the best thing in the world for that kid. And you were like, I don't know why, but right now you really want this iPad. You can use that to be like, I'm going to get a little bit more out of you, and not experience the challenging behaviors, experience him disengaging and going, and just being like, I'm done with this. Megan, do you have an experience in your classrooms with increasing the demand, increasing the VR?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out, even though your child may be experiencing a good day, a good moment, doesn't necessarily mean that you should tack on more tasks. Because then you don't want it to end up being, oh, anytime I am complying to your request, I get more demands placed on me. So you don't want to have that relationship build up, which has been a personal experience, so don't do that. I'm like, oh, like we're on a run, let's just keep going, like you're doing a great job. And then all of a sudden, which, you know, it's not really all of a sudden, but it appears that way, that we end up seeing an increase in challenging behavior. And it's, oh, what, like, why did that happen? We were on such a good run. And it's probably because he's used to a lower VR, and I was thinking that we were on a good run, and I kept putting demands on him. So I think that's the like other side, like trying to test the waters to see when we can increase it, but also not placing too many demands when you are having like a good day.
Yeah, definitely. Because you want the good days to become more and more frequent, and increasing the demand isn't going to help that. All right. What do you do if you have challenging behaviors? So when you are in intensive teaching and you experience challenging behaviors, you do need to finish the task you are on. So the question that you immediately posed does need to get finished in some way. You can make that easier, or you can increase your prompt level, or you might just need to pause and kind of wait it out and then go back to it. But that demand does need to happen. And then you then can lower the VR. But you always need to give reinforcement for compliant behavior. So it's not, unfortunately, you can't be like, oh my God, I'm losing this kid. He's having challenging behaviors right now. I'm going to shove the reinforcement at him, right? It needs to be for compliant behavior, you know, and that can be the smallest things. That can be, you came back to the table, here you go, you know, like that can be, oh, you know, you're using your textbook to show me what you want. Okay, you know, like that's where it needs to be. It can be, this is also an amazing time to pull out his knowns, because those should be easy, and easy questions should give less behavior than hard questions. And then you can be like, man, I was trying for a VR of 5 with you, but we're going back down to 3. You know, like, let's pull it back down. We're having challenging behaviors. Always check that your reinforcement is strong. If you're having behaviors, it's probably not strong enough. You know, and I know for a lot of our kids, that is a really hard thing, is finding the right reinforcement that's big enough that they're like, yeah, I'll sit with you. Yeah, I'll do what you want me to do for this time period. You have the good stuff, you know. So if you don't have the strong reinforcement, and, you know, I've had days where I've been like, I'm pulling out everything that I know, that I think this kid likes, and he just walks past it and is like, I don't care. Guess what? That's not the day to do table time. It's not today. That's, oh no, I need to go back. Like, I need to rethink this. What can I bring to this table, you know? So I would rather you not push. If you don't have strong enough reinforcement, don't push the session, because you're just going to make him adverse to coming to the table. And then you're just dealing with another problem. But I do remember when I was in training, you know, I would tell my supervisor, and I'd be like, he doesn't want to come to the table. You know, like, the demands are too hard. I'm having behaviors. And she was like, your reinforcement's not strong enough. 100% of the time, your reinforcement's not strong enough. And then I like to always check for obvious issues, especially when you're like, I saw this kid yesterday. He was doing great. Like, he liked this. He was fine with it. And you have like that Jekyll and Hyde moment, and you're like, who is this kid? I like to check for the obvious issues, which are, is he hungry? Is he sick? Has he been sitting for too long? Is he tired? Does he need to go to the bathroom? I do feel like sometimes in the heat of trying to teach, and, you know, like, this is important, trying to get what we need to get done, sometimes these obvious things get overlooked, and you have a kid who's just miserable, you know, and you're like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I need to pull back. Like, let's get him a snack, Let's figure this out. And then, if worse, when worse comes to worst, and you're like, this kid's really not having a great day. It's none of these obvious issues, but something clearly isn't working. You can always pull back and make it a manding session. And manding sessions should be amazingly fun because it's a little bit of work to request something and then get what you want. Or reinforce sitting at the table with you. That first step can be reinforced, especially on bad days. If you're making a habit of this, clearly we need to get, the BSC involved and figure out why we can't place higher demands on this kid. But everybody has that bad day. Everybody has that Monday that you're like, I don't know what's happening, but oh man, let's just sit at the table. Let's just have fun. Megan, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I do. I think sometimes we get so caught up in running trials or running tasks that they're moving and squirming, and we're don't notice that they have to go to the bathroom. And some of them, especially at the EI Center, are still learning to go to the bathroom or to request to go to the bathroom or what that means. So they might be uncomfortable, but they're still not yet sure how to communicate that to their partner. So I think in those times, we kind of forget that all these other things that we still need to teach them, express to me how you're feeling. Are you tired? Are you angry? Are you uncomfortable because you need to go to the bathroom? Did you miss breakfast this morning and maybe I didn't know because the home note didn't say it? All these kind of internal things that are going on that on top of running trials, they're still learning how to communicate. So I do think it's important to check for those.
Yeah. And oftentimes there is signals, before it become, there's build up to challenging behaviors. But sometimes we're so focused on I got to get this done. I got to run this probe sheet. We got stuff to do that we don't see them. And that's very frustrating for our kids. Yeah.
Manning sessions really do help kind of pulling in the reins a little bit.
Yeah.
I have a little kiddo that I see, and we typically do our manning sessions at the end just because 30 minutes is already too long. So the last 10, 15 minutes, we're kind of done with doing trials, and then we'll just go straight into, do you want this cat toy? Do you want this dog toy over and over again? And he is having the best time.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Manning sessions should be the best time. It was when I did sessions, it was the best time for me as a therapist, because who doesn't want to give the kid what they want? Come on. That's the best time. It shouldn't be difficult. Definitely. There's something wrong if manding is difficult. Okay. So this feels like a lot to juggle, especially if you saw my intro to verbal behavior, and possibly, now I'm adding this. I'm adding math into it, which is ridiculous of me. It probably does overwhelm you, and I understand. My recommendation is take a deep breath. We're with you. It is okay. We are not going to lean over your shoulder and be like, your VR is wrong. That's not what we want to do here. We want this to be a positive experience. And I just listed, I'm in an intensive session, we're asking you to track probes. We're asking you to keep the ratio of easy to hard 80 to 20. We might be asking you to keep a token economy system going. We're asking you to keep that child happy at the table. We're asking you to know what your ratio of reinforcement is now and teach that child. There's a lot of stuff that could be going on in your head during an IT session. So I like to think of it in these terms. If you walked away from an IT session and that child had minimal behaviors and he's making gains, you're probably on the right track. You're probably naturally on the right VR already. A VR is a way to stay consistent, but please do not freak out if you are like, I don't know what my VR is. What is it? If they had minimal behaviors, were putting an effort in and were making gains, you're on the right track. Don't worry. Now, if you have that child and you do have frequently challenging behaviors, you know, and you're like, oh, he doesn't want to sit at the table. He doesn't, you know, I can't make this work. Your VR is probably too high and your reinforcement is probably too low. That is the formula for intensive teaching. So yeah, please don't freak out. I know it's a lot to juggle. Okay, so what we are going to do first is I wanted to, with Megan, show you guys an example of a lower VR. So I have a few very interesting items that I found in my car. And for reinforcement, because I really wanted it to be obvious. So I have Jolly Ranchers here. We're gonna pretend that Megan gets Jolly Ranchers. Now, in real life, I wouldn't use Jolly Ranchers unless the kid absolutely loved these and nothing else. Number one, there's the health issue, but number two, Jolly Ranchers don't really melt in your mouth. You know, like Jolly Ranchers take time. So if I had a low VR and I'm constantly handing this kid Jolly Ranchers and he's like, I'm done with these. I have like 5 left over for later. I have the first one still in my mouth. So know that, you know, I wouldn't use Jolly Ranchers. This is what I had in my house. So I'm going to try to keep the VR at 1, right? So this is that early learner that you're like, I'm just getting him to come to the table. We are starting out, right? And because I'm with Megan through teletherapy right now, I'm going to keep my, I'm going to do imitation, and I can do interverbal, and I can do tacting, but I'm not going to have her really follow directions because we can't really see her follow the direction. Okay. So, all right. Hi, Megan. You ready to get to work?
Ready.
All right. Let's see if I can actually do it. All right. Vroom, vroom says a
Car.
All right. Megan, what is this?
Corn.
Oh my gosh, Megan. Fantastic. Here is a Jolly Rancher. So that was 2 guys. All right. What is your name?
Megan.
You're so good at this, Megan. Jolly Rancher. All right. You kick a
Ball.
All right. What is this?
Corn.
Here's Jolly Rancher. Megan, you are fantastic. So fantastic. I'm giving you 2. All right. Oh my gosh. Megan, do you know, how old are you?
Ooh, the real age or fake age?
You can do either one. Nobody's judging. Here is another Jolly Rancher. Megan, I am so proud of you. You did such a great job. So I didn't really count all that out for you guys, but I know I kept it on average 2 and 1 responses, and every once in a while I threw in that bonus, right? It might not be exactly 1-to-1, but it is pretty close, okay? So we are going to calculate Danielle's VR. She helped us by sending a video of her working with her son. And Joey is 6, and so he's what I would call an advanced learner, so that is going to be a higher VR. Her reinforcement that she used was like tickles and definitely like a pause in between the questions, but it's definitely not as concrete as handing somebody a reinforcement. And I will say, when I'm doing intensive teaching, I give a lot of verbal praise. I don't count that as my reinforcement though, because I give verbal praise for basically every correct response. And you can't have it be 1-to-1, right? So when you're doing that, make sure that you using verbal praise, and unless that kid is fed by verbal praise, you really need to add something on additional. Okay, let me see. So we are going to escape this. I'm going to line up Danielle's video. And then, so like I said before, you do not need to have anything fancy when you are calculating a VR. I just made this little table. Here, I'm going to move us around. Oh, there we are. That's perfect for where we can be. Okay, so I just have, she did 2 trials, okay? And then I'm just going to keep counting the number of tasks she gives. And then when we're done, I'm going to put a slash, and then that's the 1 for reinforcement, okay? All right. Megan, let me know if you guys can hear it.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right, do this. Good. Touch the bus. Good. Match. Awesome. Do this. What's your name?
Joey.
How old are you?
6.
Do this. What's your birthday?
My 12.
Nice job. All right,
And
ready to
there's
do
the
a little bit more?
reinforcement.
Do you need a kiss or a hug?
No.
No. You good? Tickle?
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Yeah.
All right. All right. Do this. Got it. Do this. Good. Roll, roll, roll your
But
gently down the.
stream.
Touch your nose. Touch your ears. Stand up. Sit back down. Twinkle, twinkle, little.
Star.
How I wonder what you.
Ah.
Good. Do this. Do this one. Good job. High fives. You want to tickle?
Yeah.
Tickle, tickle, tickle.
Okay. All right, so let's look at this document now. All right, Megan, can you see the Word doc?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see my recording. I did 2, 4, 6, 8. So this was 8 to 1. And then we did 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. This is 12 to 1. So 8 and 12 divided by 2 is 10. So her average of tasks that she gave Joey was 10 over her times of reinforcement. And I know I count every one. So, you know, when she was saying, row, 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 and then that's 1, and then gently down the is 2, okay? Even if you're kind of like, oh, but they fit this in. It's the amount of responses that you're asking this child. All right, so that wraps up our training video. I hope you guys learned something new today. If you are interested in this topic and you'd like to learn more about it, or you'd like somebody to kind of see how you're using it with your children, please feel free to ask the BSC or Megan at your center. That is absolutely 100% part of our job, and we would love to help you with this. All right, thank you so much.